लेक्चर के रूप में जेंडर स्टडीज का जो इंडियन सोशियोलॉजिकल सोसाइटी का अर्थ ही है, इसकी कन्वीनर के रूप में मैडम ने 2015 से 17 तक विशेष कार्य किया। उसमें मैडम को लीडरशिप ट्रेनिंग अवार्ड फॉर एशियन वुमेन मिला हुआ है। उनके अंडर में 4 रिसर्च प्रोजेक्ट्स बिल और मिलिंडा गेट्स के द्वारा फंडेड पूरे हो चुके हैं। नेशन में बहुत सारे रिसर्च स्टूडेंट्स ने अपनी पीएचडी सबमिट की है। शोध और पठन पाठन का मैडम का जो अनुभव है वो 25 वर्षों से अधिक है। और मैं ये चाहती थी कि फेमिनिस्ट स्टडीज में जो मैडम का लंबा अनुभव है, चाहे आरसी कन्वीनर के रूप में हो, चाहे प्रोजेक्ट्स के कंपटीशन के रूप में हो, चाहे शोध करने का हो, वो उस अनुभव के संदर्भ में हमारे इस प्लेटफॉर्म से सभी पार्टिसिपेंट्स जरूर लाभान्वित हो। तो वेलकम मैडम, आई फॉर्मली वेलकम यू to deliver your lecture. Welcome.
Thank you everyone, and especially thank you Professor Sunita Pandey, thank you Dr. Manish Pandey and HRDC Gorakhpur University for having me here, because this is the first time that I'll be interacting with the Deen Dayal Upadhyay University Gorakhpur, and though I have interacted throughout the country through my lectures and through all other assignments, but this is for the first time that I'm coming to Gorakhpur and Deen Dayal Upadhyay University Gorakhpur. So thank you very much for providing me this opportunity, and with these words, and I welcome, in fact you have already welcomed all the participants, and I know this is not my duty, and but still I would like to welcome the participants here, and hope you all would find my deliberation meaningful in some respect, and you'll get something as takeaway from this presentation. So as informed by Professor Pandey, I would be speaking on ontology, epistemology and methodology of feminist knowledge. So before proceeding, let us understand what is ontology, what is epistemology, and I'm sure we all know what is methodology, and how feminist knowledge is generated. Hope I am properly audible. Am I properly audible?
Yeah, madam.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I was saying that let us go through briefly what is ontology, what is epistemology, and what is methodology, and how all these three combine to generate a kind of knowledge that we are talking about today, that is a feminist knowledge. So talking about ontology, ontology is basically about the nature of reality. These are in fact the concept or the word is related to philosophy, and we are not going into the detail of what is ontology, but what you have to understand is that when we talk about ontology, that means we are talking somewhere about the nature of reality, means the knowledge. We have been in fact always debated about the knowledge that is prevalent in society, the kind of knowledge that surrounds us. And this kind of debate has been going on since long. In fact, it has been traced, and I'm sure that despite this tracing kind of work, as I was saying, that it has been traced since ancient Greek period. And I'm sure that before that also, this kind of inquisitiveness was there in people to know what is the reality of knowledge or what is the nature of reality. So ontology is something, if we want to define it as per the Webster's dictionary, we can define it as a theory about the nature of being or the kinds of things that have existence. That means what exists ontology tries to understand those kind of knowledge or those kind of realities. Let us speak, I'll be interchangeably using the word knowledge as well as reality, and I would mean the same thing by both these things, both these words. So what I want to say is that the kind of theory of in fact being or the things that have existence is known as ontology, and it refers to the study of our existence and the fundamental nature of reality, basically the nature of reality. And when we come to the research part, ontology refers to the researcher's belief about the nature of reality. What do we believe is the nature of reality? Ontology talks about this. And when we try to look from this perspective or from the perspective of ontology, we would ask the kind of questions like what exists, मतलब क्या जो है वो मौजूद है, किन चीजों का अस्तित्व है, what is true, सच्चाई क्या है, and how can we sort existing things. Basically क्या exist कर रहा है, क्या सच है और उसकी प्रकृति क्या है. So these are the things that basically the nature of reality and the truth of existence. This is what we inquire through ontology, or an ontology points out towards these facts. So basically, when the examples of ontology would be does the researcher, as we was talking that the ontology is the researcher's belief in the existence of knowledge and the kind of knowledge. So what exists exactly? So the question related to ontology would be, does the researcher believe in existence of one kind of reality, or the reality can be of multiple types? So the multiple construction of reality that can be in fact related to certain context, or there is only one reality that is context free. This kind of question ontology wants us to ask, wants the researcher to ask. So if we look from the ontological perspective, the feminist knowledge, where does it stand? We'll come to it later, but we were discussing what is ontology and what kind of question is expected if we are discussing about ontology. Now moving to epistemology. What is epistemology? Epistemology is basically to know what is the nature of the reality, in fact to know what is the nature of the knowledge. As I was saying that I'll be using these two words interchangeably. So what is the nature of knowledge, what is the nature of reality, and what is the somewhere it also points towards the knower, known, and how to know, though the how to know parts belongs more to the methodology than to epistemology. So who is the knower? वो कौन है जो चीजों को समझने की कोशिश कर रहा है, वो कौन है जो चीजों को जान
मैडम मे बी आपका साउंड आ नहीं रहा है, क्या सभी लोगों को साउंड नहीं आ रहा है?
जी सर, साउंड नहीं आ रहा है।
सर साउंड नहीं आ रहा है।
ओके,
आवाज
ओके।
नहीं आ रही है।
हाँ सर, साउंड नहीं आ रहा, साउंड नहीं आ रहा सर।
मैडम फिर से कनेक्ट हो रही हैं।
Am I audible now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, now you are audible.
Okay, sorry for the disturbance, and it was power cut in our area, so this happened. I was trying to join through my mobile, so I'll have to cut it first, otherwise it will make a kind of noise. So just give me a minute. I'll leave this meeting. Thank you. So sorry, and thank you for bearing with me. And
No issue, ma'am. Welcome again.
okay. So where were we? We were basically talking about ontology and epistemology. So epistemology, if we try to understand what is epistemology, basically it is made up of two words, the meaning of which is knowledge and to understand. So to understand the knowledge or to know what exists or what is the nature of reality is epistemology, and it also speaks about the relationship between the knower and the known. Like I was saying कि कौन है जो जानने की कोशिश कर रहा है और क्या मतलब जानने की कोशिश की जा रही है। मतलब इसका ये है कि when we take this epistemology, there are definitely people or group of people or the system that tries to know something about the reality. So the knower is also important. Is it the member of patriarchal society, or is it the member of matriarchal society, or is it men or women or any other gender? So the knower becomes important when we talk about epistemology. And what is to be known? Obviously, the kind of knowledge which we are trying to gain or trying to understand will depend on the kind of knower. If it is a female, they would like to know different kind of social realities. If we try to know something from main perspective or dominant perspective, the kind of knowledge we would be seeking would be different than the kind of knowledge which women or the third gender or the queer people would try to seek. So definitely it becomes important to understand who is the knower and what is to be known when we are talking about epistemology. So basically epistemology refers to the kind knowledge and how do we gain that knowledge. The kind of knowledge that we get, मतलब जो भी हम knowledge अर्जित करते हैं, वो knowledge कैसे अर्जित करते हैं, एपिस्टेमोलॉजी ये जानने की कोशिश करता है. इनफैक्ट तो पर्सन्स का जो है ऑन्टोलॉजिकल बिलीफ जो है, जो रिसर्चर का ऑन्टोलॉजिकल बिलीफ है कि क्या किस तरह की रियलिटी में वो विश्वास करता है, जैसे हम लोगों ने डिस्कस किया था. So does researcher believe in objectivity of knowledge or subjectivity of knowledge? So the epistemology is in fact decided or influenced to a great extent by the researcher's belief system. What does he believe in, or what does she believe in? So this kind of belief of the researcher becomes important when we talk about epistemology. So when we try to understand what kind of questions are asked, so the epistemology would ask to how the knowledge is acquired and how do we know what we know. जो अभी हम लोग बात कर रहे थे कि हम जो जानते हैं वो कैसे जानते हैं और नॉलेज को कैसे acquire किया जाता है, और what kind of relationship the researcher believes in the participants should have. Should it be objective or should it be subjective? So epistemology somewhere points towards the known relationship and how to know also. That is, as I was saying, that more a part of a methodology than this epistemology. So nature of relationship, knowledge and the relationship between known and the knower is what is epistemology. So ontology decides to certain extent, to a great extent in fact, what would be the kind of epistemology we would be going for, and on the basis of ontology and epistemology, the kind of methodology would be selected. Now, what is methodology? If we try to understand, and we all know methodology is a systematic, the way we go about acquiring knowledge is methodology. So how the knowledge is gained and how they are understood, this is what forms the basically the process of acquisition of knowledge is what methodology does. So driven by the researchers' ontology and epistemological beliefs, methodology would be selected. If the researcher believes in objective reality, that is ontology, the kind of epistemology would be, in fact, he would be choosing, would be somewhere objectivity. The kind of methodology that he would adopt would be scientific, so that he, what he aims to achieve, that is the kind of knowledge which he aims to achieve. And in this case, his belief is in objectivity of knowledge. So he would choose a kind of methodology that would suit this objective knowledge. So now all three are very closely related and interrelated, I would say, because the choice of ontology, epistemology, and methodology all are very interrelated and decides the kind of knowledge that will be generated. Now coming to the feminist methodology or feminist knowledge, how this ontology, epistemology, and methodology can lead to generation of feminist knowledge in society. So we know that ontology is the nature of reality. The researcher tries to understand tries to know what exactly exists and what is the reality of this existing knowledge. So if the researcher believes in the existence of objective knowledge, he would go for a positivistic kind of methodology or scientific kind of methodology. But if the researcher doesn't believe, and you also must be remembering that in ontology, the researcher either believes in one single kind of knowledge and that is prevalent throughout the society, and it is not bound to any kind of context, because there is only one kind of knowledge. So the context bound knowledge is not needed. Either the researcher can believe in context bound knowledge, or he can believe in a knowledge that is free from the context. And when the researcher believes in context bound knowledge, or the multiple types of knowledge, or the multiple types of reality that exist in society, he would be generating different kinds of knowledge. Talking about the feminist knowledge, if the researcher believes that their knowledge can be derived from a perspective other than dominant perspective, then he is somewhere or she is somewhere. I'm myself also biased because I'm using the word he, not she. So let us not get trapped into he and she. So what I want to say that if the researcher believes that knowledge can be of more than one type, and the knowledge can be situated in the context, that is context bound, then he'll be going for a kind of epistemology that seeks that kind of knowledge, and he would adopt the methodology that would somewhere justify the acquisition of knowledge, the kind of knowledge that he wants to acquire. He would choose that kind of methodology. So what coming to the feminist knowledge, if we try to understand feminist knowledge from the point of view of ontology, epistemology, and methodology, that means the ontological perspective would be the researcher believes in knowledge, multiplicity of knowledge, and the researcher believes in context specific knowledge. Secondly, epistemological part also will be influenced by the ontological part, and the knowledge that will be, in fact, methodology that will be adopted will be the kind of methodology here in this case, because we are talking about feminist knowledge. The kind of methodology will be feminist methodology that will be informed to a great extent, in fact, completely informed by feminist epistemology. And what is feminist epistemology? The kind of epistemology that will generate feminist knowledge, the kind of feminist empiricism, feminist standpoint theory, and transitional kind of perspective. So this the feminist knowledge depends to a great extent on the researchers' belief in multiplicity of knowledge, existence of a reality that can be feminist in nature, then the kind of epistemology that is feminist, that believes in and adopts, in fact, feminist empiricism and feminist standpoint perspective. And the kind of methodology he'll be choosing or she'll be choosing will be feminist methodology. Now coming to the point that is there a kind of methodology or a kind of epistemology that is feminist in nature? Obviously, there is in fact, definitely exists the kind of ontology, epistemology, and methodology that leads to the generation of feminist knowledge in society. So, why do we need to generate feminist knowledge, and what were the concerns of the people, the feminists, that led to discovery of feminist knowledge? or what were the beliefs of the researcher here, the feminist researcher, and why did they go for feminist epistemology and feminist methodology. What happened immediately after, or in fact both were going on simultaneously, the second wave of feminism that flourished globally during 60s and even 70s. So the second wave feminist, you must be knowing, have contributed a lot towards knowledge generation, towards improving the status of women in society. And one step was taking a kind of knowledge, looking for the kind of knowledge that can be beneficial for women, because till then, what was happening that whatever was being written was from a dominant perspective, was being written from the male perspective or the main perspective or the dominant perspective, whatever you want to call it. So the till 60s and 70s, the knowledge that we had in society were based on positivistic methodology or positivistic assumptions of society, and that the knowledge can be scientific in nature. So if we look for knowledge that is scientific in nature, that means we are somewhere looking for objectivity. And if we are looking for objectivity, we are ignoring the subjective experiences of large sections of society, different categories of people in society. That is the reason we are talking about intersectionality nowadays, because unless you go for intersectional analysis, you won't be in a position to understand the reality of different sections of society. Let us not talk about intersectionality, because intersectionality has become popular in around 2015 and 17, though the concept was given by Crenshaw way back in 1989. But it became popular in 2015 and 17. And after that, we have started using intersectional analysis as a tool. So what I want to say is that why this kind of ontological perspective came into being at the first place, because there were no knowledge. The whatever was being written was history, not her history. History and her story. History is his story, and her story was somewhere being neglected. And there have been feminist thinkers who, between in fact 1974 to 1983, I guess, went through the publications, and they went through 700 publications on theories, sociological theories and methodologies. And what they realized, that mostly women were absent from all these places. So does it mean that the knowledge, women don't have any knowledge, or does it mean that it has been neglected so far? So on the basis of this, the activism of second wave feminism, we see the attention being drawn to the kind of experiences that women have, and acknowledging, in fact, drawing attention and somewhere forcing the world to acknowledge the experiences, the knowledge set that women have. And now even climate change recognizes the kind of knowledge and the indigenous knowledge set that the women in society have. So what were the concerns? Why did women go for identifying and seeking the feminist reality and using feminist epistemology and methodology to arrive at the knowledge of the women in society, what they feel, how they perceive things, and how they experience the realities? Because it is a well-established fact that women and men, and in fact other genders also, about which I'm not talking, but both, in fact all of these categories experience social realities differently. So the concerns were at that point in time were that this gendered kind of knowledge is essential in society because gender somewhere represents a fundamental form of social division within society. And if we don't have knowledge about one particular section of society, that means we are missing out on complete knowledge. And that is not the kind of knowledge that we have is not balanced kind of knowledge. That means we have to get knowledge about the other half of the society also. Until then, we were only talking about women, not the other genders. So then gender division, the concerns in fact what feminists had, that gender represents fundamental form of social division within society, and the gender division somewhere shapes the experiences and perspectives of male and female in society. And there are it is important to get knowledge from the feminist perspective, so that we can understand the different sources of inequality and oppression of women in society. So these were certain concerns of the feminists. And if you look at why women or the feminists were concerned about the kind of knowledge being generated, and why they somewhere criticized the dominant perspective generating knowledge, the male perspective, which we also can call dominant perspective. So the feminist critique of the dominant perspective, there was some critique of the dominant perspective, which is important to understand why feminists wanted the ontological and epistemological and methodological perspective to combine to collect or to gain feminist knowledge in society. And these in fact critique were of the dominant perspective were omission and underrepresentation of women as research subjects, and the second was concentration of male dominated sectors of life. Let us discuss these one by one. I'll take points and then discuss. So omission and underrepresentation of women as research subjects. What used to happen that when the knowledge was gained using dominant perspective, somewhere the women as researchers were ignored, or they were omitted, or they were underrepresented as subjects of research. Like and let us take another point here only, and that is concentration of male dominated sectors of concentration on male dominated sectors of life. Let us take example for these both these, because only one example would suffice to explain both these points what I want to explain. Underrepresentation of women and omission of women as research subject, because the dominant perspective somewhere was focusing on the male dominated sectors of life. So one example can be housework. If you go through an Oakley's study about housework and the housewives, she studied housewives and how they perceive housework, and on the basis of her study, she concluded that the dominant perspective generating knowledge somewhere doesn't take account of the sectors where women are in majority. Their focus is mainly on those sectors where mainly male dominate. So the kind of knowledge that we get is partial knowledge, that is not complete knowledge. So feminists wanted to achieve or to gain a kind of knowledge that is complete knowledge, and that is why they wanted feminist knowledge and wanted these kind of techniques to be used for gaining that knowledge. What does male dominant perspective or the dominant perspective gaining knowledge do? Another point is use of concepts, methods, and theories that portray men's experiences, and use of men and male lifestyle as the norms against which social phenomena are interpreted. So what happened at that point, why feminists were keen on getting knowledge using feminist perspective, and why they criticized, because as we took one example that women were mainly neglected by the dominant perspective. The part of the society where women were basically concentrated, it was ignored. The housework, where the house where women are mainly concentrated, it was neglected by the dominant perspective. Obviously, we did not have knowledge about women, their experiences, how they feel, and what kind of stories they have to tell. And when I'm using the word stories, I'm using it with full sincerity and with full seriousness. I'm not talking about a kind of joke kind of story. So what I want to say, the kind of stories that women has also contributes to knowledge. So knowing their side of the story becomes equally important. Now coming to the concepts and theories and methods that they used to use, in fact that they used to focus upon. Let us take one example of one of the theories, uh, functionalism. Functionalism, what does it say? That everything that exists in society, it exists because it contributes towards the maintenance of equilibrium in society. It exists because it has function for society. This is what functionalism believes in. Now, analyzing women's position from functional perspective would translate into that women's unequal status or subordinate status in society is functional for society, because functionalism sees everything through the lens of being functioning. In fact, whatever exists is functional. That is why it is existing in society. So if we are analyzing functionalism and looking at women's situation, they would never go for analyzing the cause of inequality, the oppressive reality of women's lives, the subjugated position that they have in society. So this was one of the another criticism that feminists did, that the kind of theories and concepts that are being used, though I was talking about functionalism, if we go through the Parsons functionalism, Parsons expressive role, what he talks about expressive and instrumental role, he talks about the expressive role to go to women, but and it was he was criticized for raising this issue also. Then gradually he moves forward and changes his stance and says that women can decide whether they want to play expressive role or instrumental role in society. So the kind of knowledge that functionalism, the functional perspective would generate, definitely would ignore the perspective of women. And positivistic kind of knowledge, or the scientific way of acquiring knowledge. If we acquire knowledge using scientific ways or scientific methods or positivistic method, it would mean that we would not go for subjective kind of knowledge. And if we are not going for subjective kind of knowledge, that means the reality of women's life would be, in fact, would remain hidden. So to let the reality of women come forward and become public, it is important to use a kind of methodology, epistemology, and ontology that reveals the reality of women's life. And that is why and so that we can generate feminist kind of knowledge. So let us leave. We have taken sufficient example. Theory of deviance also, and theory of stratification also. You know what? How the theory of stratification has been framed. Theory of stratification basically considers the household level data, theory related to poverty, in fact poverty related data that is also collected at the household level. So what when some data is collected at the household level, say the data related to the inequality that led to the formulation of stratification theories in society, the data was collected at the household level, meaning that the reality of women in those families were not realized. In fact, it was somewhere hidden. So it becomes important to use a kind of methodology that seeks subjective kind of knowledge also, and then only will be able to understand the knowledge that women have in society that we are talking about in this presentation, that feminist kind of knowledge. And indigenous knowledge also can be taken or can be considered in this kind of category. So we need a kind of methodology, the kind of research that is feminist in nature, so that feminist knowledge can be gained. Now, what kind of research is feminist research? So a piece of research, any research becomes feminist research when the importance or the centrality of gender is given importance in the research. The focus should be on women. Then the kind of research will be a piece of research can be feminist research. Then challenging the norms of objectivity and focusing on subjectivity. So when we somewhere challenge objectivity related to in fact objectivity related norms of gaining knowledge and focus on subjectivity, it can be a kind of way of generating feminist knowledge. I'm not denying the fact that using the same kind of focus we can generate many subjective knowledges, but here we are talking about feminist knowledge. So that is the reason I'm taking feminist research as example. There are many subjective kind of knowledges that can be generated using the same kind of ontological, epistemological, or methodological perspective. Now, a feminist research is a research that somewhere focuses on the experiences of women, how the women become unequal, how they become subjugated in society. This is the focus of a research when it is the research that can be termed as feminist research. And one of the most important objectives of feminist research is it is somewhere transformative in nature, transformative in the sense that it believes through generation of knowledge, it believes in transforming the reality of women in society. So a feminist research completely focuses on women. It focuses on the subjectivity rather than objectivity. It focuses on generating knowledge that can transform the position of women, the situation of women in society. So this type of research, if we go for take up this kind of research, it will be a feminist research. So what is in fact the suggestion of radical feminists? Why do they, in fact, how do they want to generate feminist knowledge in society. Basically, we have talked about this earlier also. They criticize standard methodological practices and proposes to replace these standard methodological perspective that generate biased knowledge in society to in fact feminist methodologies. So standard methodological practices should be replaced with feminist methodologies, and the questions of epistemological assumptions of positivistic science, in fact, what we have talked about in detail, let us not stick to this point. Then construction of, in fact, feminist standpoint. That is also important suggestion given by the feminists as far as generation of feminist knowledge in society is concerned. What happens when we use conventional ways or dominant ways of models of generating knowledge, which somewhere ignore the important areas of inquiry in society, like let us talk about emotion, friendship, motherhood. These are very important areas of inquiry in society, and focus has to be put on these areas to gain correct knowledge, to gain balanced knowledge, to gain, in fact, feminist knowledge to some extent, I would say. So focus on ignored areas of social inquiry is important rather than focusing on conventional areas only, and this feminist research can do this. Then focus on public, official and visible role players. What was the bias earlier, and even now we have this bias because 2 days back one of my husband's friend, he visited us, and we started talking about, because he is heading somewhere some environmental division that and he plays important role in formulating policies, passing policies for government of India, formulation of policies, approving those policies. So I asked him, do you take into account the knowledge of environmental knowledge of women while formulating these policies? His answer was, what is the knowledge that women have? ये सब जो है, ये सारी बातें जो है, सिर्फ जानबूझकर की जाती है. Women के पास environment से related कौन सा knowledge है? So I was completely shocked to hear this point of view from a person who plays very important role in fact who plays important role in formulating policies for government of India. So this is a kind of belief that is important. In fact, most of the people in society have. They tend to focus more on public, more on official role players, and when we focus on public and official role players, we ignore women. Because, just a minute, I'm continuously disconnecting this phone. Still they are calling. श्रीवास्तव जी, I'll call you back. हम अभी लेक्चर में हम बाद में बात करते हैं. When the dominant perspective used to focus on public area, that means women would be outside of this domain, because women are generally confined in private areas. And mind you, I'm not talking about women like us who are private part of public areas. Majority of women are part of private life, not public life, and they are not official part of public life, that they are not official role players. They are basically, they belong to non-official arenas of life. And that is why knowledge related to the focus on private, the focus on non-official becomes important. And we have talked about all this. And basically, the ontological perspective that believes in single kind of knowledge, believes in existence of a single kind of society, and a kind of society that is mutually exclusive. In fact, I'm forgetting the name of the thinker who has said it, that men and women belong to their respective single world. That means the worlds are separate, and if we don't focus on both the worlds, what I aim at pointing out is that focus on both these kind of worlds is important to gain a kind of knowledge that is balanced in nature, and that is very, very, very important also for gaining feminist knowledge. So feminist knowledge can be acquired using feminist methodology also, because even after you realize, you believe that there can be multiple realities, even if you are using feminist epistemology, then also you have to use feminist methodology to arrive at a kind of knowledge that we can term as feminist knowledge. And feminist, what exactly is feminist methodology? So any methodology that is committed to these three goals can be feminist methodology. And these goals are shifting the focus of from men to women. Any methodology that shifts this focus from men to women. And here I would like to warn again that too much of focus on women and no focus on men would again lead to generation of biased knowledge. So there should be balance when we try and analyze any topic, and specifically if we are working on women and related topics, we should focus on the women, but try to go for, in fact, here I would say, try to go for intersectional analysis, and you would be able to understand the reality. Otherwise, shifting focus completely, that feminist methodology points towards, from men to women, would again generate biased knowledge. So focus should be shifted, but in a balanced manner, and in fact in an intersectional manner. So this is feminist methodology. One commitment of feminist methodology is shifting focus from men to women. Then aims at minimizing harm to women and limiting negative consequences. The kind of research that is being generated, the kind of knowledge that is being generated using any kind of methodology. The feminist methodology aims, in fact, to minimize the negative consequences of using feminist methodology. Give me a second. I need to switch off my AC because I'm getting a kind of sound which is dangerous, I guess. So what I was saying, that feminist methodology somewhere focuses on minimizing harm to women, the negative consequences to women. When we are using feminist methodology, we focus on women, we try to minimize the harm that the knowledge can do to women. And the third focus of feminist methodology is it supports research that we were talking about. In fact, the transformation is one of the aim of feminist methodology. So the focus of research, the aim of research is to transform the situation of women in society. And if a methodology is committed to all three goals, all these three goals, that means we are somewhere using the feminist methodology, a methodology that will generate the feminist knowledge. Now coming to what are the basic principles of feminist knowledge. What kind of knowledge uh, uh, we are gaining that can be termed as feminist knowledge. So, a knowledge, basic principles of feminist knowledge is, first principle is significance of gender relations as a basic feature of social life, including research. So, feminist knowledge somewhere points, in fact, focuses on the significance of gender relations in society, because unless you focus on gender relation, you won't be in a position to know the power dynamics that exist in that particular society. So focusing on gender relation is important to understand the power dynamics, to understand why certain segments of society are not in fact reaping those kind of benefits which some sections of society are reaping. So feminist knowledge focuses on gender relations, which the dominant perspective of gaining knowledge doesn't do. Then consciousness raising is used as one of the principles of feminist knowledge. Now, what is consciousness raising? Consciousness raising was basically a kind of tool that was used during second wave of feminism, and it's still very effective tool of collective mobilization. What had happened after Betty Friedan's The Feminine Mystique? You should go through that book. This was the book that somewhere broke this myth that women are happy being housewives, women are happy being mothers, women are happy if they are given all the luxuries of life. गहना दे दो, अच्छी साड़ियां दे दो. बहुत से मजाक इस तरह के होते हैं सोसाइटी में जो कि बायसेस दिखाते हैं कि अगर कोई औरत है तो उसको गहना दे दो वो खुश हो जाएगी, उसे अच्छे कपड़े दे दो, लग्जरीज ऑफ लाइफ दे दो तो वो खुश रहेगी. बेटी फ्रीडन की इस किताब ने, द फेमिनिन मिस्टीक ने, इस मिथ को तोड़ने का काम किया था कि औरतें जो है हाउसवाइफ्स बनकर खुश होंगी, औरतें जो है सिर्फ मदर बनकर खुश होगी, या औरतें जो है लग्जरीज ऑफ लाइफ को एंजॉय करना चाहती हैं और अगर वो ऐसा कर पाती हैं तो वो खुश होंगी. तो जो कॉन्शियसनेस रेजिंग था, एक टूल था कलेक्टिव मोबिलाइजेशन का जो कि यूज किया गया था सेकेंड वेव फेमिनिस्ट के द्वारा. इसमें क्या होता था, इनफॉर्मल टॉक्स के जरिए छोटे छोटे ग्रुप्स में women used to gather, they used to talk about their own situations, they used to talk about their feelings, how they feel being part of a private life, and somewhere by doing so they used to understand that they are not happy being merely a housewife, being merely a mother, or enjoying the luxuries of life. They are not satisfied doing that only. And gradually, second wave feminists went for collective mobilization. They started associating more and more women using collective consciousness as a, in fact, consciousness raising as a technique of collective mobilization. So feminist knowledge believe in consciousness raising, in discussing things that are important to women, in discussing areas that are uncomfortable, that women want to discuss or they may not want to discuss, but those are important from the perspective of gaining feminist kind of knowledge. So feminist consciousness raising can be used as a specific kind of methodological tool in feminist methodology. So this is one of the basic principles. Then challenging the norms of objectivity. Obviously, if we go for objective kind of knowledge, that means we are ignoring the reality of women's life, because women's knowledge about women's life cannot be gained unless we go for different kind of methods completely, like life histories, oral histories, qualitative kind of methodologies. So these are important techniques if we want to know the reality of women's life. Simply asking whether you suffer from violence or not, they may not answer this question in yes or no, or they may answer that no, because they are not in a position to disclose how they feel. So building that kind of rapport and then trying to gain knowledge becomes important, and that is why consciousness raising was an important methodological tool, and challenging the norms of objectivities becomes also important, because if you focus only on objective knowledge, women's lives will be ignored, and feminist knowledge you can never gain by ignoring or focusing on objectivity only and ignoring subjective knowledge. So focus on subjectivity is important for gaining feminist knowledge. Then feminists are also concerned for about ethical considerations of research, though nowadays many of us are concerned about the ethical considerations of research. Then emphasis on patriarchy, in fact transformation of patriarchy, so that empowerment of women can take place. So these are some of the researches, in fact basic principles that govern feminist knowledge. And I think I should quickly discuss few more points and wind up, so that I would like to have some questions and to make things more clear. So what kind of strategies or techniques can be used to gain feminist knowledge? If we are not focusing on objectivity, then to gain subjective knowledge, what kind of techniques can be used? And here we are talking about not methodology, but methods. Visual techniques like photography, video recording generally are in fact contribute to generation of feminist knowledge. Then triangulation as a technique can also work for gaining knowledge. What is triangulation? In fact, use of more than one kind of research techniques is triangulation. So triangulation is very effective if you are trying to gain feminist knowledge. Then linguistic technique, conversational analysis. So analysis of the conversations, that also can bring out important and hidden knowledge about women's life, and this technique also is important. Then textual analysis, which we have been doing and pointing towards the biases in textbook, and this was also one of the contributions of second wave feminism, which continued to third wave also, in not that much proportion, but yes, it continued to third wave also. Then focus on qualitative research methodologies, because focus on quantitative again would not lead to the generation of feminist knowledge. So focus on qualitative research techniques is important for gaining knowledge about the women or feminist knowledge. Then collective research methods, in fact combining more than one method, which we were talking about, like triangulation, that is important. So using these techniques can lead to generation of feminist knowledge. So feminist knowledge, when we talk about, or feminist ontology, epistemology and methodology, there are certain emphasis. Pardon?
प्लीज अपने आप को अनम्यूट कर लीजिए भाई.
Are you talking to me?
नो मैम, किसी का माइक वो है, देख लीजिए. प्लीज म्यूट योरसेल्फ. माइक को कीजिए, अनम्यूट कीजिए.
So, taking few last points, in fact, last point, the emphasis of feminist methodology, ontology, and epistemology. The great divide we talk about in feminist methodology is qualitative versus quantitative. So, what kind of methodology we go for that can generate feminist knowledge? Should we go for quantitative or should we go for qualitative? And this can be another topic of lecture also, qualitative versus quantitative divide. So we are not focusing much on this part, but the focus on, in fact, the emphasis on whether the focus should be on qualitative or quantitative method. This is the great divide that is an issue of concern for feminist methodology. And then research relations. What kind of relation will be there between the researcher and the research? Generally, if you want to go for feminist knowledge, if you want to acquire feminist knowledge, you have to somewhere eliminate this research hierarchy. The researcher and the research should be on the same platform. Then only the research will be in a position to share the hidden realities of their life, and it becomes very important. If research hierarchy is maintained, feminist knowledge cannot be gained. So elimination of this research hierarchy and bringing the researcher and the subject both on the same platform becomes important as far as feminist methodology and feminist knowledge is concerned. Then the knowledge, how to generate knowledge, feminist ontology and feminist epistemology is important. That means feminist empiricism, feminist standpoint, all these becomes important if we are talking about feminist knowledge and shifting the center again. What we used to do when it all started, the focus was on gaining feminist knowledge, and for gaining feminist knowledge, it was somewhere the focus tilted towards women, as I was mentioning right now. So the focus was on qualitative, focus was on women, focus was on eliminating the research hierarchy. So everything they did so that the women's knowledge, the feminist knowledge can be gained. But again, the focus is shifting, the center is shifting again, because now we are in feminist methodology also, we are talking about quantitative methodology, using quantitative methodology methods, in fact, to gain knowledge. A combination of both. Wherever necessary, use quantitative. For other kind of knowledge, use qualitative. So combination of both these techniques becomes important. And if we go further and talk about third gender and queer people, again, it will be the shifting the center again kind of situation. So gaining feminist knowledge contributes to balancing the knowledge that we have in society, and that is why feminist knowledge becomes important. Thank you very much. I'm stopping with these words.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah, please go.
आवाज पहुंच रही है मैम?
हाँ पहुंच रही है, बिल्कुल बोलिए
जी। मैम मैं डॉक्टर महंती प्रसाद यादव दिल्ली से बात कर रहा हूँ। मैम आपका पूरा सेशन इतना बेहतरीन और संतुलित रहा, इस बात की तो खैर कोई भी शब्दों में हम नहीं कह सकते, पर एक बात बहुत अनुशासन प्रिय से जो हमने जो अध्ययन किया, सोसाइटी को जो आपने रख करके बात की और सोसाइटी के विषय में जो सोच है, लोगों की धारणाएं, उसको आपने बहुत बेहतरीन तरीके से प्रस्तुत किया। मुझे हंसी आ रही थी, थोड़ा सा मैं शेयर करना चाहूंगा। जब अभी आप कह रही थी कि महिलाओं को सिर्फ ये न माना जाए, ठीक है, घर के जो है काम क्रिया में लगी रहती हैं, तो मैं बता दूं, बेशक हम इतने दिन से 6-7 दिन से जुड़े हुए हैं प्लेटफॉर्म से, और चूंकि हम दोनों वर्किंग है तो मैडम आज हाफ डे लेके आई थी किन्हीं कारणोंवश, क्योंकि बिटिया का स्कूल से उसे लेना था और मैं भी थोड़ा सा कहीं बिजी था। तो आज मुझे मैम कॉफी मिली अभी पीने को, जस्ट जब आप ये बात कह रही थी तब नीचे से उन्होंने कॉफी भेजी मेरे को। तो मुझे आपकी बात से तब से बहुत हंसी आ रही थी कि मैम ने कितनी अच्छी बातें कही, और उसी टाइम मुझे मतलब व्यवहारिक तौर पे हम ये देखें कि महिलाओं का भी अधिकार उतना ही है जितना हम पुरुष, और कभी भी मिलजुल के पारिवारिक में चीजों को किया जाता है। ऐसा ना समझा जाए कि महिला है तो ये काम करेगी, साथ में करना। इसके लिए मैम आपको बहुत बहुत बधाई और प्रार्थना करते हैं कि आप हमेशा स्वस्थ रहें। और संगीता मैम को विशेष तौर पे, क्योंकि उनके माध्यम से जो प्रोग्राम बेहतरीन चल रहा है, उनके लिए तो खैर जो भी कहा जाएगा कल कहा जाएगा अगर मौका मिला तो, क्योंकि उनका बड़ा साथ मिला है। और हमारे मनीष सर के बारे में तो कुछ कहना ही अभी अच्छा नहीं होगा थोड़ा सा। इस सब के लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद मैम आपको।
थैंक यू।
आप पार्टिसिपेंट में से, आज आप पार्टिसिपेंट में से किसी को कोई क्वेश्चन तो नहीं पूछना मैम से? मुझे लगता है कोई नहीं पूछना चाहता है। मैं HRDC सेंटर, DD यूनिवर्सिटी गोरखपुर और अपने जितने भी सारे प्रतिभागी हैं उन सभी की तरफ से आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद करती हूँ। आपने आज का जो टॉपिक उठाया वो हमारे लिए बहुत थोड़ा सा नया था, स्पेशली ऑन्टोलॉजी और एपिस्टेमोलॉजी, लेकिन आपने फिर उसमें मेथोडोलॉजी के साथ जो फेमिनिस्ट नॉलेज के बारे में हमें बताया, कुछ चीजें ऐसी थी हाँ जिनके बारे में हमें पता था, लेकिन इतने अच्छे तरीके से, इतनी व्याख्यापूर्ण तरीके से अब तक किसी ने भी मुझे नहीं समझाया था। आपने टू द पॉइंट इसमें बात की और बहुत सारे ऐसे बिंदुओं पर हम लोग का ध्यान केंद्रित किया जो इससे पहले हमने सुने नहीं थे या हमको पता नहीं था। और ये बात फैक्ट है मैम कि अभी भी विमेंस को लेके जो हमारी धारणा है उसमें बहुत ज्यादा परिवर्तन नहीं हुआ है। आपने इन सारी चीजों को हमें इतने अच्छे तरीके से समझाया, जिस प्रकार से आपका स्वभाव बहुत ही सरल और सहज है, बिल्कुल उसी सहजता के साथ आपने हमें समझाया मैम। इसके लिए थैंक यू सो मच। मैं सारे प्रतिभागियों की तरफ से आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद करती हूँ।
थैंक यू। नमस्कार।